Once upon a time, there was a young prince who wanted to travel all around the world. He took only one person with him, a faithful servant who had been by his side for many years. One day, they came to a huge, dark forest. As night fell, they could not find any shelter and had no idea where to stay. Then, they saw a young girl walking towards a small house deep in the woods. When the prince got closer, he saw that she was very young and very beautiful. He spoke kindly to her and said, "Dear child, can my servant and I find a place to stay in that little house for the night?" The girl answered with a sad voice, "Oh yes, you certainly can, but I would not advise you to do it. Please, don't go in." "Why not?" asked the prince, feeling curious. The maiden sighed deeply and said, "My stepmother is a witch. She practices evil magic and hates strangers." Now the prince knew that he had found the house of a wicked witch, but because it was dark, he could not find any other place to stay, and he was not afraid. He decided to go in. Inside, an old woman with fiery red eyes was sitting by the fire. She looked up at him and growled, "Good evening." Pretending to be friendly, she offered them a seat and told them to rest while she stirred something strange in a small pot over the fire. Quietly, the maiden warned them, "Be careful. Eat nothing, drink nothing. She brews evil in that pot." The prince and his servant slept safely through the night. In the early morning, they got ready to leave. The prince had already mounted his horse when the old woman said, "Wait a moment. I want to offer you a parting drink." While she went to fetch it, the prince quickly rode away. The servant stayed behind for a moment, needing to tighten the saddle on the horse. When the witch returned, she gave the drink to the servant and said, "Take this to your master." But just then, the glass slipped, broke, and the poison inside spilled onto the horse. The poison was so strong that the horse immediately fell down dead. The servant ran to tell his master what had happened. But he did not want to leave the saddle behind, so he went back to fetch it. When he reached the dead horse, he found a raven already sitting on it, pecking at the flesh. "Who knows if we'll find anything better today," said the servant. So he killed the raven and took it with him. They travelled through the forest the whole day, but still could not find a way out. When night came, they found an inn and decided to stay there. The servant gave the raven to the innkeeper, asking him to prepare it for supper. However, they had stumbled into a house full of murderers. 12 of these wicked men planned to kill the prince and his servant during the night to steal their belongings. But first, they all sat down together to eat supper, along with the innkeeper and the old witch. In the soup they ate was the poisoned raven meat, and hardly had they eaten a few bites before all 12 murderers, the innkeeper and the witch, fell down dead. The poison from the dead horse had passed to the raven, and from the raven to them. Now, there was no one left alive in the inn except the innkeeper's daughter. She was an honest girl and had not taken part in any of their evil deeds. She opened all the doors and showed the prince the hidden treasures stored in the inn. But the prince said, "You may keep it all. I want none of it." And he rode away with his servant. After travelling for a long time, they came to a town where there was a beautiful but very proud princess. She had made a bold announcement. Anyone who could ask her a riddle that she could not solve would become her husband. But if she guessed the answer, the man would be put to death. She was so clever that she had never yet failed. 9 suitors had already tried and lost their heads. When the prince heard about her, he was blinded by her beauty and decided to take the risk. He went to the princess and asked her this riddle. "One slew none, and yet slew 12. What is that?" The princess thought and thought, but she could not figure it out. She searched through her riddle books, but found nothing. For the first time, she was at a loss. So she decided to cheat. She ordered her maid to sneak into the prince's room while he slept and listen to him. Maybe he would talk in his sleep and reveal the answer. But the clever servant had switched places with the prince and was lying in the bed. When the maid crept in, he grabbed her mantle, the cloak she wore, and chased her away with sticks. The second night, the princess sent her maid-in-waiting. But the servant once again caught her, took her mantle too, and chased her out. On the third night, the princess came herself, wearing a misty grey cloak. She sat quietly beside the prince's bed, hoping to trick him into talking. But the prince was awake and heard everything. She whispered, "One slew none. What is that?" The prince answered softly, "A raven, which ate the poisoned flesh of a dead horse and died from it." "And yet slew 12. What is that?" she asked again. He replied, 12 murderers who ate the raven and died of the poison." When the princess heard the answer, she tried to sneak away. But the prince grabbed her cloak and held it tight, forcing her to leave it behind. The next morning, the princess proudly declared that she had solved the riddle. She brought the 12 judges and explained the riddle before them. But the prince stepped forward and said, "She cheated. She came into my room at night and heard the answer from my own lips." The judges asked him to prove it. Then the servant brought out the 3 cloaks, the 2 from the maids and the misty grey one from the princess herself. When the judges saw the grey mantle, they knew it belonged to the princess. They said, "Let this mantle be embroidered with gold and silver, and let it be your wedding mantle." Thus, the prince won the princess, and they were married. And so the story teaches us that sometimes cleverness mixed with honesty wins over even the greatest tricks. And in life, true victory belongs not to those who cheat, but to those who stay patient, wise, and just.